Welcome back to the Racing Mind video series, where we journey deeper into the human mind than anyone has ever gone before. In this video series, we untangle the ancient mystery of mental illness and teach you what you need to know before your racing mind gets the best of you. This groundbreaking series provides answers to some of the deepest mysteries of the human mind and reveals, for the first time in history, the precise cause of mental and emotional illness and the psychophysiological basis of a wide range of psychiatric disorders and associated medical conditions. These educational videos, which present concepts that are so new that they are just beginning to make their way through the medical field, are based on thousands of hours of direct patient analysis and clinical observation in conjunction with the latest research on psychiatric disorders from around the world. In this segment of the series, we will provide a quick self-assessment to help you determine whether your brain is hyperexcitable. As previously discussed in this video series, neuronal hyperexcitability is the elusive neurophysiological abnormality that is believed to underlie a wide range of psychiatric disorders and associated medical conditions. It is the inherited biological trait that is thought to fuel the chemical imbalances that have traditionally been linked to clinical depression, bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, social phobia, panic disorder, OCD, ADHD, PTSD, schizophrenia, chronic insomnia, Tourette's disorder, and intermittent explosive disorder. It is also thought to be at the root of school phobia, learning disorders, stuttering disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, personality disorders, dissociative disorders, eating disorders, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, postpartum depression, hypersensitivity to sound or light, misophonia, narcolepsy, cataplexy, hypochondriasis, somatization disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, nicotine addiction, alcoholism, substance abuse, pathological gambling, trichotillomania, kleptomania, pyromania, sexual perversions, and criminality. Neuronal hyperexcitability is also believed to underlie a number of physically related conditions, including migraine headache, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, PANDAS, chronic fatigue syndrome, restless leg syndrome, chronic muscle tension, chronic pain, diabetes mellitus, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroiditis, psoriasis, lupus erythematosus, and a number of other general medical conditions that can severely reduce one's quality of life and one's length of life. The symptom list that follows can help you determine whether your brain is hyperexcitable. In so doing, it can give you a highly treatable, neurophysiologically based explanation for your symptoms rather than just a potentially confusing and stigmatizing categorical diagnosis. Would you consider yourself to be a very sensitive or emotional person? Do you tend to be highly driven, highly energetic, and on the go? Conversely, do you tend to be sluggish, lacking in motivation, and low in energy? Have you ever found that your energy level tends to be up or down but rarely in the middle? As you were growing up, were separations from family members or friends particularly difficult for you? Were you highly stressed by family issues, major life changes, or medical illnesses? Were you ever diagnosed with a learning disability such as dyslexia, sensory processing disorder, or ADHD? If any of these apply to you, your brain is likely to be hyperexcitable. Let's look at some more symptoms. Regardless of your age, do you tend to overreact to situations or become anxious, worried, or depressed? Have there been times when you could not stop grieving or that you felt persistently guilty for things that were not really your fault? Do you tend to overthink things and have difficulty making decisions, large or small? Do you have difficulty concentrating because your own thoughts or sounds around you tend to be distracting? Does your mind keep replaying like a broken record or alternate between lots of thoughts and very few thoughts? Does your mind frequently cause you to think things that you really don't intend to think or say things that you really don't intend to say? Do you sometimes find yourself turning off the lights at night only to find that your mind gets very busy and won't allow you to fall asleep? Have there been times when you just couldn't get up in the morning or that you woke up in a depressed or angry mood for no apparent reason? Conversely, have there been times when you felt little need for sleep or that you woke up all rearing and ready to go even though you had relatively little sleep? Have you found that your mood is inconsistent from day to day or that your energy level fluctuates for no apparent reason? Have you had changes in mood or energy that persist for long periods of time, such as weeks or months at a stretch? Or have you had rapid fluctuations in your mood or energy amidst longer cycles of one state or another? Are there times when your concentration is really good and other times when it is really bad, or that it is only good when you are having fun or highly interested in what you are doing? Have there been times when you found yourself having to pretend to be paying attention to others because you could not remain focused on what they were saying? Do you find it difficult to remain seated for an extended period of time without getting antsy or losing focus on what you are doing? Do you have a tendency to avoid projects and responsibilities due to boredom or problems remaining focused? Do you find that you are at your best when you are physically active, on the go, or having to juggle many things at one time? Do you feel the need to wait until the last minute before you get up the motivation to attend to your responsibilities? Do you sometimes seek distractions or dangerous activities just for the thrill of it, or as a distraction from a persistent state of boredom? Do you find yourself being an all or nothing person, or that you have an addictive personality? Are you addicted to caffeine, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, or some other drug of abuse? Do you have trouble letting go of things or people even when you know that they are not good for you? Do you sometimes find yourself feeling physically restless, unable to relax, and jumping from one thing to another? Do you have a hyperactive, depressed, anxious, or exceedingly bubbly temperament? Are there times when you are a social butterfly, but other times when you just want to avoid people? Are there times when you feel like the Energizer Bunny or that you can conquer the world, but other times when you feel overly tired, unmotivated, and negative in your thinking? Are there times when you brainstorm and make grand plans for the future, yet lose the energy and motivation to completely follow through? Are there times when you feel a mixture of emotions, such as happy and sad, energetic and anxious, or motivated and irritable at the same time? Are there times when your emotional state suddenly switches for no apparent reason, or because you suddenly started thinking about something that had little to do with what you were previously thinking about? Have you had times when your thoughts came so fast that you could not speak them or write them down fast enough? Do your moods tend to follow the seasons, or do you tend to feel down most of the time with only occasional periods of normal mood? Alternatively, do you tend to feel up most of the time with only occasional dips in your mood for no apparent reason? Have you found that prolonged periods of high emotional stress either speed you up or slow you down to the point that others notice the changes in you? Have there been times when you had frequent crying spells, or that you became overwhelmed with emotion in relation to relatively trivial things, such as the drama in a movie, play, or television show? Have there been times when your mind would not shut off, or, alternatively, when it felt so sluggish, tired, or empty that it would not turn on? Have there been times when you felt overly self-conscious, afraid of being criticized, or trapped in your life situation? Have there been times when you felt highly anxious in open spaces or places where there were a lot of people? Have there been times when you felt anxious in closed spaces or in places from where it would be difficult to extricate yourself? Do you tend to have repetitive thoughts, obsessive thoughts, racing thoughts, grandiose thoughts, or ugly thoughts for no apparent reason? Do you ever have marked fluctuations in your appetite, interest in food, or enjoyment of the taste of food? Have you had times when you lost nearly all interest in the things you normally like to do, and other times when you felt so excited about them that you could hardly wait to get started? Do you tend to start many projects at one time, become overly excited about them, or overestimate their value? Have there been times when you were seeking lots of excitement with relatively little concern about the costs or risks involved? Have you had times when you were so enthusiastic and full of energy that others asked you to stop talking or go away for a while? Do you experience both emotional pain and emotional pleasure more intensely than others? Do you ever have surges in your libido or a desire for sexual relations regardless of the risk? Conversely, have you had times during which you had no interest in physical intimacy or of being around people in general? If you are in the habit of exercising, have you found yourself planning your exercise sessions around your energy states rather than the day of the week? Or do you have trouble sticking to your routine because of unexpected changes in your energy or motivation? Do you tend to have prolonged periods of high productivity followed by prolonged periods of low productivity? Are you rigid and perfectionistic? Or do you have a need to be excessively neat or orderly? Do you have a tendency to be late because of an irresistible need to keep checking and rechecking things? Do you have persistent fears of being contaminated or feel that you need to keep washing or bathing in order to avoid germs? Does your mind have a tendency to get stuck on one specific worry or train of thought, no matter how hard you try to stop thinking about it? Have you found yourself taking much longer than others to get over something that upsets you? Or do you find yourself continuously brooding about unpleasant things that have happened to you? Do you often blame yourself for things that are outside of your control? Have there been times when you felt emotionally cut off from people or that the world felt more like a dream than reality? Have you had times when you felt like you or the world were moving too slowly, or, conversely, when you or it were moving too fast? If you are a woman, are your emotions strongly affected by your menstrual cycle? Or have you experienced postpartum depression or other persistent psychiatric symptoms after childbirth? Have you found that being pregnant gave you a reprieve from your normal level of emotional discomfort, especially during the second half of your pregnancy? If you are a man or a woman, have there been times when you have fallen into a depression, become very anxious, very irritable, or emotionally elated for no apparent reason? Do you feel like you are especially vulnerable to depression or that there is always a dark cloud hanging over your head? Do you have persistent difficulties falling asleep, or is your sleep pattern erratic and unpredictable? Alternatively, do you tend to oversleep because you lack the energy to get up in the morning? Do you find that you are easily startled, or that things that would not be very bothersome to others are very bothersome to you? Are there times when you have trouble concentrating and other times when your mind is very sharp and highly focused? Have there been times when you felt unusually energetic and enthusiastic but that almost anything got on your nerves and made you angry? Have there been times when you experienced things so intensely that they distorted your reality or beliefs about what others were thinking or saying about you? Have you ever heard voices or found that your thought processes were confused, disconnected, or disorganized? Have there been times when you felt like a complete failure, that you would never amount to anything, or that your life was completely useless? Have you ever felt suicidal or attempted to kill yourself? Alternatively, have there been times when you felt extremely important, that your talents were far better than those of others, or that you were invincible? Have you ever become so preoccupied with your appearance that you started on a course of extreme dieting, extreme exercising, or considered having plastic surgery? Have there been times when you restricted your eating, engaged in purging, or exercised excessively to lose weight? Do you often binge eat or eat very unhealthy foods just to quell your emotions? Have you had insatiable desires that cause you to do things regardless of how expensive, risky, or objectionable to others they might be? Have you noticed that you do a lot of foot tapping, nail biting, skin picking, or hair pulling? Are you impatient, demanding, or high-strung? Do you have anger problems, road rage, or difficulty tolerating the slowness of others? Do you have stormy relationships or difficulty maintaining long-term relationships? Do you frequently yell at your children and later feel like you should apologize to them because you were overly harsh or impatient? Have you ever created a public disturbance, destroyed property, or been in trouble with the law because you became impatient and lost your temper? Have you ever attempted to kill someone or severely injure someone else? Do you often find yourself apologizing for things that you said or did, yet find yourself being unable to change? Are your blood pressure, pulse, or blood sugar markedly affected by your emotional state? Have you ever been diagnosed with clinical depression, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, OCD, PTSD, migraine headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, or any of the other disorders listed at the beginning of this video? Do you obsessively worry about your health or think that there might be something wrong with you despite the reassurance by doctors that you are in good health? Do you have frequent psychiatric symptoms, symptoms that seem to fit several different psychiatric diagnoses, or physical symptoms for which doctors can find no medical cause? If any of these signs and symptoms apply to you, your brain is likely to be hyperexcitable and affecting the quality of your life. As previously stated, neuronal hyperexcitability is a common, genetically transmitted abnormality that is hypothesized to be at the root of virtually all psychiatric disorders and a wide range of physical ailments and general medical conditions. The good news is that the abnormality, which runs in families and is estimated to affect approximately 40% of the population, is highly responsive to both natural and medicinal treatments. According to a groundbreaking new study published in the American Journal of Clinical and Experimental Medicine, the brain that is hyperexcitable has difficulty shutting off, particularly when the mind is under emotional stress. Because the mind and the brain are in a continuous dialogue, mental and emotional tension cause the electrical activity in the hyperexcitable brain to progressively ramp up. As this occurs, the escalating neurological activity causes the cognitive emotional abnormalities that we refer to as, quotes, psychiatric symptoms. Because the brain takes time to ramp up, there is generally a delay of weeks to months between the onset of the stressor and the development of symptoms. Although resolution of the stressor will begin to allow the brain to calm down, there is a corresponding delay between the resolution of the stressor and a return to baseline functioning. The nature of that baseline will depend upon the degree of hyperexcitability of the neurons. For persons with mildly hyperexcitable neurons, baseline can be expected to be completely normal. For persons with moderately hyperexcitable neurons, baseline can be expected to be mildly abnormal. For persons with severely hyperexcitable neurons, baseline could be expected to be noticeably abnormal, albeit not as abnormal as when the level of stress is high. The quality of one's baseline functioning will also depend upon the person's level of cognitive emotional maturity. In general, the more mature a person becomes, the more effectively he or she has learned to manage stress. Because better stress management reduces mental and emotional tension, the brain is prevented from becoming as agitated, and symptoms are prevented from becoming as severe. Other natural ways to prevent the brain from becoming overly agitated include establishment of an early sleep schedule, regular exercise, enjoying a relaxing hobby, avoiding caffeine and other psychostimulants, and minimizing refined sugar. Then again, because neither these interventions nor mature coping mechanisms are able to correct the underlying gene abnormality, there may also be a need for neuroregulators and other brain calming medications, particularly during high-stress periods in the person's life. If taken at the right time, these medications can prevent the dialogue between the mind and the brain from escalating into a full-blown argument, thus minimizing the need for medication. Such judicious use of medication can, for persons with mildly hyperexcitable neurons, reduce the need for medication to just a few days or weeks, unless the stressor persists for a longer period of time. Those with higher levels of neuronal hyperexcitability will generally fare better to take brain-calming medications on a regular basis. In addition, cognitive behavioral and other forms of psychotherapy may be needed to reduce the mental tension that adds fuel to the smoldering embers in the hyperexcitable brain. Control your brain, control your life. We hope that you are benefiting from this video series. Portions of this video and others in the series were taken from the books The Racing Mind and Am I Depressed or Am I Bipolar? Those interested in developing a deeper understanding of this topic can also refer to the scientific publication The Multi-Circuit Neuronal Hyperexcitability Hypothesis of Psychiatric Disorders. Please note that these materials in this video series are for educational purposes only and are not intended to guide treatment without formal evaluation. This video series is sponsored by the Binder Foundation, a charitable organization that is dedicated to the enhancement of human life through research and education on disorders of the mind, body, and spirit. If you have found this video to be of benefit to you, please share it with your family and friends. And please don't forget, your feedback is important to us.